Some of the most damaging things in your life are not loud enough to be noticed immediately. They don't arrive like disasters. They arrive as habits, patterns, mental loops you repeat so often, they begin to feel like personality traits. Over time, they shape the way you think, the way you react, the way you carry yourself through the world. You start explaining your existence to people who never intended to understand you. You drain your energy trying to keep up with everyone else. You criticize yourself so harshly that peace begins to feel unfamiliar. You become trapped inside roles, expectations, and fears that no longer reflect who you truly are. And eventually, you wake up feeling disconnected from your own life. Not because you failed, but because you slowly abandoned yourself in ways that seemed normal. Stoic philosophy teaches that freedom is not found in controlling external chaos. It's found in recognizing the invisible patterns quietly stealing your clarity from within. The second half of this journey is not about becoming perfect, it's about becoming aware. In this video, we'll uncover the final 8 things you should quietly eliminate from your life if you want emotional discipline, inner peace, and a mind that no longer depends on constant validation, comparison, or fear. Because sometimes the greatest transformation begins the moment you stop carrying what was never yours to hold. Section 8. Explaining yourself to everyone. There comes a point where constantly explaining yourself becomes emotionally exhausting. Not because you're hiding something, but because you begin realizing that not everyone is asking questions to truly understand you. Some people simply want access to your decisions so they can judge them, control them, or measure them against their own expectations. So you keep talking. You explain why you changed, why you left, why you became quieter, why your priorities are different now. And slowly, without noticing it, your life starts feeling like something you constantly have to defend. Stoic philosophy teaches that real confidence does not need endless justification. A person who is deeply grounded in themselves does not spend their life trying to convince everyone else to approve of their path. Because the truth is, some people will misunderstand you no matter how clearly you explain yourself. You could speak perfectly and still be interpreted through someone else's fears, projections, or insecurities. That's why over-explaining becomes dangerous. It quietly teaches your mind that your choices require permission to be valid. But they don't. You are allowed to grow without announcing every detail of your transformation. You are allowed to set boundaries without writing a long, emotional explanation. You are allowed to choose peace without convincing everyone around you to agree with it. Silence is not weakness. Sometimes silence is self-respect. And there is power in becoming someone who no longer feels the need to constantly translate their existence for other people's comfort. Because the more secure you become internally, the less energy you waste trying to be fully understood by everyone externally. And that freedom changes everything. Section 9. Habits that quietly kill your energy. Most people think exhaustion comes from major problems, but often energy disappears through small daily habits, repeated without awareness. The endless scrolling before sleep, the constant overstimulation, the automatic yes when your body desperately needs rest, the cluttered mind that never truly pauses. At first, these behaviors seem harmless. Everyone does them. They become part of normal life. But over time, they slowly drain your clarity, focus, emotional stability, and sense of presence. And eventually, you stop feeling alive. You just feel constantly tired. Stoic philosophy teaches that your energy is one of the most valuable things you possess because it shapes how you experience every part of life. Yet many people hand their energy away carelessly every single day without questioning what it's costing them, mentally, emotionally, and physically. You wake up already overstimulated. Your attention feels fractured. Your thoughts become heavier. Even simple decisions begin feeling overwhelming. Not because you are weak, but because your nervous system has been overloaded for too long. The dangerous part is that these habits rarely look destructive in isolation, but combined together, they slowly disconnect you from yourself. You stop listening to your body. You stop protecting your peace. You stop noticing how drained you truly are until burnout becomes impossible to ignore. Real change does not always require dramatic transformation. Sometimes it begins with removing one small habit that keeps stealing your energy every day. One less distraction. One honest boundary. One moment of stillness. Because discipline is not only about productivity, it is also about protecting your mind from things that quietly destroy your inner balance over time. And once you begin guarding your energy carefully, life starts feeling lighter again. Section 10. Constant self-criticism. Some people spend their entire lives fighting an invisible enemy inside their own mind. No matter what they achieve, it never feels enough. No matter how hard they try, there is always a voice quietly reminding them of what they did wrong, what they should have done better, or who they still failed to become. They speak to themselves with a level of cruelty they would never use on another human being. Every mistake becomes proof of inadequacy. Every failure becomes part of their identity. Even moments of success are quickly dismissed because their mind immediately searches for the next flaw. And over time, this constant self-criticism becomes normal. Stoic philosophy teaches that discipline is necessary, but self-destruction is not. There is a difference between honest self-reflection and emotional punishment. One creates growth. The other creates exhaustion. Many people believe harshness will make them stronger, so they pressure themselves constantly. They replay embarrassing moments. They obsess over imperfections. They carry guilt long after the lesson has already been learned. But a mind trapped in endless criticism eventually loses the energy required to improve at all. Because when your inner voice becomes hostile, life starts feeling like a battlefield you can never leave. The truth is, growth does not come from hating yourself into becoming better. It comes from learning without humiliating yourself, correcting yourself without destroying your confidence, acknowledging weakness without turning it into identity. You are not meant to spend your entire life emotionally attacking yourself for being human. Some mistakes deserve responsibility, but not permanent self-condemnation. Peace begins the moment you stop turning every imperfection into evidence that you are unworthy. Because the strongest people are not the ones who never fail. They are the ones who can face their flaws honestly without losing respect for themselves in the process. Section 11. The need to always be right. There's a hidden exhaustion that comes from always needing to win the conversation, not because you love conflict, but because somewhere deep inside, being wrong started to feel dangerous. So, every disagreement becomes a quiet battle. Every opinion feels personal. Every misunderstanding feels like an attack on your worth. But peace disappears the moment your ego becomes more important than your clarity. Some people spend years defending themselves without realizing they're defending a version of themselves built on fear. Fear of looking weak. Fear of not being respected. Fear of not being enough unless they can prove they're smarter, sharper, more correct than everyone else in the room. The Stoics understood something most people never learn. Your calm is more valuable than your victory. Not every argument deserves your energy. Not every misunderstanding needs correction. Sometimes the strongest response is silence. Sometimes wisdom looks like letting someone keep their opinion while you protect your inner stability. Because constantly needing to be right slowly poisons your relationships. It turns conversations into competitions, It makes listening impossible. And eventually, you stop seeking truth and start seeking validation. Marcus Aurelius wrote that a wise person is willing to change when shown a better perspective. That requires humility. It requires enough inner security to admit you don't know everything. And that kind of confidence is rare. Real strength is not loud. It doesn't fight for the last word. It doesn't need applause after every debate. It simply stands firm without becoming hostile. The moment you stop trying to conquer every disagreement, your mind becomes lighter, your relationships become softer, and, for the first time in a long time, your peace matters more than your pride. Section 12. Comparing yourself online. The modern world has made comparison feel normal. Before your day even begins, you've already seen dozens of people who seem more successful, more attractive, more disciplined, more fulfilled than you. And without noticing it, your mind begins measuring your life against carefully edited moments from strangers. That's how self-worth quietly disappears. You were fine before you opened your phone. Then suddenly, your progress feels small, your pace feels slow. Your life starts looking incomplete simply because someone else presented a polished version of theirs. But social media rarely shows reality. It shows performance. It shows celebrations without loneliness, success without sacrifice, smiles without anxiety. And when you compare your full human experience to someone else's highlight reel, you will always feel behind. The Stoics warned against attaching your value to external things because external things constantly change. Today, the world praises one person. Tomorrow, it forgets them completely. If your identity depends on comparison, your peace will never survive. Most people are not actually unhappy with their lives. They become unhappy after looking sideways too often. But your journey was never designed to look like anyone else's. Some growth happens quietly, no audience, no applause, no dramatic transformation. Just small, invisible moments where you choose healing over reaction, discipline over distraction, honesty over performance. Those moments matter more than anything posted online. You do not need to rush your becoming. The oak tree grows differently than the flower. Both still belong to nature. So stop asking why your life doesn't look like theirs. Ask instead whether you are becoming more aligned with yourself. Because the moment you stop competing with strangers, your nervous system finally rests. And in that silence, you remember something important. You were never late. You were simply distracted by other people's timelines. Section 13. Overcommitment and people-pleasing. There are people who feel guilty the moment they disappoint someone, even if they are exhausted, even if they are overwhelmed, even if their own needs have been ignored for months. So they keep saying yes. Yes to favors they don't want to do. Yes to conversations draining their spirit. Yes to responsibilities that quietly destroy their peace. And after a while, they don't even recognize their own life anymore because every hour belongs to someone else. People-pleasing looks kind on the surface, but underneath it often hides fear. Fear of rejection, fear of conflict, fear that if you stop being useful, people will stop loving you. So, you overextend yourself trying to earn connection through sacrifice. But eventually, the body keeps score. Your energy fades, your patience shortens, your mind becomes heavy, and the version of you that once felt alive slowly disappears beneath obligation. The Stoics believed that a person without boundaries becomes controlled by external demands. If everyone has access to your time, your emotions, your attention, then your inner world no longer belongs to you, and peace becomes impossible. Saying no is not cruelty, it is clarity. You do not need to explain every boundary. You do not need a dramatic excuse to protect your energy. Rest is not something you earn after collapse. It is something necessary for a meaningful life. Some of the most exhausted people are not doing too little. They are carrying too much that was never theirs to hold. And the dangerous part is that overcommitment becomes addictive. Being needed makes you feel important, but importance without balance leads to self-abandonment. Real self-respect begins the moment you stop asking, "How can I keep everyone happy?" and start asking, "What kind of life allows me to remain whole?" Because your worth was never meant to be measured by how much of yourself you can give away. Section 14. The identity you outgrew. There comes a moment in life when the version of you that once felt natural begins to feel heavy. You still wear the same personality, the same habits, the same role everyone expects from you, but inside, something no longer fits. The laughter feels forced, the routines feel empty. Even the way you speak starts sounding unfamiliar to your own ears. That's what happens when the soul begins outgrowing an identity the mind is still trying to protect. Maybe you became the dependable one because chaos surrounded you growing up. Maybe you became the achiever because praise was the only time you felt seen. Maybe you became the people pleaser because rejection once hurt too deeply. Those versions of you were not fake. They helped you survive. But survival is not the same as alignment. The danger is that many people stay loyal to old identities long after they stop serving them. Not because they're happy, but because familiarity feels safer than transformation. They keep performing old roles to avoid disappointing others, even while silently abandoning themselves. The Stoics believed growth requires releasing attachment, even attachment to who you used to be. And that's difficult, because once you change, people react. Some will call you distant, others will say you've become cold or different. But what they often mean is this: you no longer behave in ways that make them comfortable. Growth changes dynamics. You are allowed to evolve beyond the version of yourself people memorized years ago. You are allowed to become quieter, softer, stronger, slower, more honest. You do not owe the world permanent consistency. The old version of you carried you this far. Respect it, learn from it, but don't imprison yourself inside it. There is another self trying to emerge, and your life changes the moment you stop fearing that transformation. Section 15. The fear of starting over. Few things terrify people more than beginning again. Not because starting over is weak, but because it forces you to confront uncertainty without guarantees. It asks you to leave behind what is familiar, even when what is familiar is slowly draining your spirit. So many people stay in situations that no longer fit them simply because they've invested too much time to walk away. A career that empties them, a relationship that no longer feels alive. A version of themselves they secretly outgrew years ago. They stay because restarting feels embarrassing. But the Stoics understood something powerful. Staying somewhere that destroys your peace is far more dangerous than beginning again. Starting over is not failure. Failure is ignoring the quiet voice inside you for years because you're afraid of disappointing others. Sometimes the bravest decision is admitting that the path you chose no longer reflects who you are becoming. And yes, beginnings are uncomfortable. You become uncertain again. You lose clarity. You stop feeling in control. There will be moments where you question yourself, moments where the old life calls you back simply because it was predictable. But predictable does not always mean healthy. Every meaningful transformation begins with discomfort. The seed breaks before it grows. The old chapter closes before the new one reveals itself. You are not behind because you changed direction. You are not weak because you needed a reset. Human beings are not machines built to remain identical forever. Sometimes wisdom looks like walking away. Sometimes healing looks like rebuilding from nothing. And sometimes the most important chapter of your life begins the moment you stop forcing yourself to remain where your soul no longer belongs. Do not fear becoming a beginner again. There is freedom in no longer pretending. There is peace in finally choosing a life that feels true. And there is strength in taking the first step, even while your hands are shaking. Most people spend their lives trying to add more success, more approval, more distractions, more noise. But real transformation often begins the opposite way. It begins with removal, quietly letting go of the habits, fears, attachments, and identities that have been stealing your peace for years. Not all at once, not dramatically, just honestly. One pattern at a time. Because the truth is, many of the things exhausting you are not external. They are internal burdens you've carried for so long that they started feeling normal. The need to explain yourself. The fear of disappointing people. The obsession with perfection. The constant comparison. The old pain you replay every night in silence. None of those things were meant to become your identity. The Stoics taught that peace is not found by controlling the world around you. It is found by mastering the world within you, by learning what deserves your energy and what deserves release. And that takes courage. Not loud courage, quiet courage. The kind that chooses healing without applause. The kind that walks away from what no longer aligns. The kind that stops performing and starts living truthfully. Maybe not everyone will understand your transformation. Maybe some people will miss the version of you that tolerated everything, explained everything, carried everything, sacrificed everything. But that version of you was exhausted, and you were never meant to spend your entire life surviving. You were meant to become. So, as you leave this video, don't ask yourself how quickly you can change your life. Ask yourself what no longer belongs in it. Then begin there. Slowly, calmly, honestly. Because every burden you release creates space for something better. Clarity, presence, discipline, peace. And in the end, that quiet inner peace will matter more than anything the world ever applauded you for. Thank you for being part of Stoic Journal. Until next time, protect your mind, guard your energy, and continue becoming who you were always meant to be.